Good evening, everybody. It's SevsDeadSerious. And tonight, the topic I'm taking on is why is it illegal? And what I'm talking about is marijuana. You know, for the life of me, I cannot figure, with all the gridlock and the screaming about the deficit and everything else that's going on in D.C., why is marijuana still illegal? I mean, cigarettes are legal. Yeah, you can go out and buy cigarettes. They've got nicotine in it. It even right on the side of the package of cigarettes, it says, these will kill you. They're legal. You know, we tried, this whole prohibition thing once before, and did it work? How did that work out? You know, the only people who made money on it were the bootleggers. Bootleggers made tons of money on that deal. Boy, everybody made money. You know, anybody who was, collecting graft, corruption, gangsters. You know, it's kind of like marijuana. And marijuana is one of those substances that really is kind of innocuous. Thanks to the 1936 Harrison Act, it's even illegal at all. Prior to that, no one cared. And then it was made illegal thanks to movies like, there was Reefer Madness. Reefer Madness was this guy smoked this joint. One scene, this guy smokes this joint and he goes like crazy. You know, he's like, he's got a gun. You know, and that's another rant. That's That's guns. I'm going to go into that. Well, I think I've already gone into that. National Rifle Association, that old bit. I don't like those guys. Don't trust them. But, here we've got marijuana. And 1936 Harrison Act, and, again, I'm a historian, so I checked this up. It was a tack on to another bill. So now suddenly marijuana is illegal. Now, for years, it was something very quiet, and then during the 60s, it kind of grew and grew and grew. You know, everybody started smoking pot. And I'm not going to sit here and advocate. I'm not an advocate. I don't advocate anything. If you want to smoke pot, smoke pot. If you want to shoot up heroin, shoot up heroin. It's your life. I don't think I'm a libertarian per se, but I would say that, I don't see a problem with it. You're hurting you. And I don't think the government has the right to tell you, if I want to do something stupid, then that should be my right to do something, as long as I'm not harming somebody else. If I want to go out there and put something in my body that and we allow it with cigarettes, as I said before, there's a little thing on it that says, you will die if you do this. But it's illegal. So if the government really wants to, and the government, don't get me started on them. I was just reading the other day that the fastest growing economy, regional economy in the country is D.C. Is it any wonder that the Confederacy of Dunces, which is my term for the United States Congress, that would include the president, and I did vote for him. But it doesn't make him any smarter than the rest of the idiots. And, I'm very bipartisan about it, very pragmatic about it. I think they're so concerned with raising campaign funds and satisfying their constituencies. And I don't understand these constituencies because their constituencies have asked them to do lots of things and they haven't done it. Okay, constituents said, we believe in that all people should be checked no matter where they buy a gun. Mandatory gun checks for anybody who buys a gun. We don't think that anybody should be allowed to have over a 10-round clip. But they didn't care about that. They didn't, the 85% of the Americans, the United States Senate said, no, none of those things are going to work. So obviously it's not about we the people. It's about we the politicians and we the Confederacy of Dunces. And I'm not going to give no passes for Obama. You got the AP, and he didn't know. Okay. Which was, that was the first, where they, subpoenaed papers from the press, which is freedom of the press. It's a First Amendment thing. And so they went out and did that. They went out and tapped that. And then the Benghazi thing, which is, way overblown, way overhyped. But again, Obama passed the buck on that one too. He didn't know about it. There's a lot of things that go on in D.C. that President Obama doesn't know about. And that's kind of a lame excuse. I mean, Nixon used it. I didn't know. And Shakespeare who said, "Thou doth protest too much." And one of the problems that I think you probably are starting to notice as you start seeing me more and more is I digress whenever I want and for whatever reason I want, because, well, that's just the way my mind works. And since it's my podcast, I get to do anything I want. There, I made faces. Everybody's going to click me off. Okay, thanks. See you later. Bye. Okay, back to the marijuana thing. Again, I don't advocate the use of marijuana. What I do say is, why do we legalize it? Okay, first off, by taxing and legalizing it. And in my life, I have met people who are doctors, lawyers, engineers, teachers, administrators, presidents and vice presidents from companies, you name it, you name a career. I've met people who smoked, and in many cases, frequently smoked marijuana. And they were all high achievers. They had done well. They were family people, whatever. There was nothing about them that was evil, that was criminal. There was no behavior that was apparent to society. It just didn't make any sense. Now, if you take it and legalize it, you can now begin to control it, because one thing I learned teaching in the inner city, drug dealers don't card. They don't ask for, could I see some identification before I sell you this nickel bag? Well, no, they don't do that. If you got the nickel, you got the bag. I mean, it's real simple. And by having it illegal, how many, and this is really a dead serious problem. We now open more prisons per year in this country than we do new schools. And you're building a criminal class with the prohibition of drugs. How many young African American males are busted on the streets with a bag full, with a pocket full of nickel bags? They got a whole pocket full of nicks. They're out trying to make a dime. And they get busted, and they end up doing a year, 2 years in the joint. Boom, it's a felony rap. It goes on. And let me tell you, here you are, 20 years old with no future. You can't get a job because you got a prison record. If you're an urban kid, inner city kid, you probably went to a crappy high school. You probably had some real crappy teachers, and no one really gave a crap about you. And now here you are, and now you can't get a job. And we wonder, and then with the easy accessibility of weapons on the streets, well, geez, what do you think's going to happen? You got to feed yourself, you got to clothe yourself, you got to provide shelter. And it's easy to sit there and say, well, you go out and get training or something like this. Why not take something that people do? I'm not going to tell you if I do or don't. Well, hell, I will. Have I smoked marijuana? Absolutely. Do I smoke it anymore? None of your business. Does it matter? Does it make me any less of a person? Does it make me a criminal if I do? Because if it does, then I'll tell you something. There's a third of Americans are criminals. So they should all be in jail. And that's ridiculous. Why not just legalize it? They're trying it in Colorado. They're trying it in Washington. So what we're seeing is there are many people who believe enough that they would vote to have it legalized for recreational use in their state. Well, then, why shouldn't the federal government do like they did with gambling and say, hey, you as a state make your decision. We as a federal government will make no law if you choose to do it. And it's kind of like the abortion issue. If you don't want to smoke marijuana, then don't. If you don't want an abortion, then don't get one. Don't go after a woman's body and say, well, I think it was one of the Bible Belt states, maybe it was one of the Dakotas or one of those states out there, wanted a law that you had to hear the baby's heartbeat before you could have an abortion. And so again, it's these legislatures, which are predominantly white males, going on telling a woman what to do with her body. Well, and again, it's an argument that's innocuous, and Again, if you don't believe in it, then don't get one. And I mean, it's just that simple. It's your body. And if you want to do something to it, then that's your choice. And if in fact you're getting to a point now where they're saying, when does life start? Well, it's to a point where I'm worried if I masturbate, they might file murder on me if I don't plant it in my wife. I don't plant the sperm in my wife. Oh my God, he slaughtered those sperm against the wall. It's a masturbation joke. Sorry. I just threw that in there because I like to digress occasionally. But let's back to the whole marijuana thing. So if you legalize it, now you can actually begin to tax it. And if you could tax it, then you can begin to overcome this deficit. And the numbers I have read, if you choose to believe numbers you read, and again, depending on who's giving you the numbers, kind of like a Sean Hannity book. If you go out and approach every single ultra-right conservative newsletter, blog, whatever for your research purposes, well, I'm sure you can back up every single knucklehead conservative response you've ever had, which is exactly what Sean Hannity does. How he learned any research in 2 years of college is, again, beyond me, but I'm not going to go into Sean Hannity's absolute ill-equipped to speak in any intellectual level on probably most about anything. And don't tell me he reads a lot, because I don't buy that for a minute. He spends a lot of time with his hair, I think, getting really nice ties. But anyway, back to the marijuana thing. You tax it. You can now begin to kill, and here you're having a way of bringing money in and overcoming the deficit and bringing putting it back into education, whatever things you want to. And again, why do we even have a deficit? And everybody blames, teachers, and they blame the poor, and they blame everybody else. I have a young man who was one of my students. He's now a major in the United States Marine Corps. Much decorated, Afghan, Iraq, decorated war hero, special operations. He's an incredible. Listen, for lack of a better word, he's an extremely well-trained weapon for the United States Marine Corps. He is a wonderful man. He's a family man. He's got daughters, and he won't even get in the V-22 Osprey, which is this, tilt wing aircraft that goes up and down, but it crashes all the time. And the United States government has already invested $45 billion in it. And it's proved itself to be an abject failure. But we keep building them, we keep testing them, and we keep crashing them. And all that money being spent, we take that out, put marijuana in. Marijuana doesn't harm anybody. Is there harm from smoking anything? Well, yeah, there is. But we've already proven that we don't care about smoke because we have allowed cigarettes. Now, that has a lot to do with, the growing real estate business market in Washington, D.C. All the lobbyists are pouring money into D.C. And where's that money going? That money's going into the hands of politicians through meals and goodies and all this other stuff, the perks of being a politician, the Confederacy of dunces. And, how many of these clowns have ever been back to their constituencies where they actually sit down with we the people? Well, most of them never do. And I think if we the people ever had an opportunity, most of us, it's kind of like gay marriage. Who cares? If somebody smokes pot, who cares? It's not hurting you. More people die texting than do by smoking marijuana and driving. So are we, and there's very few places that don't have, that have texting laws. There's recommendations. They ask you not to. But there's very few places that actually have laws. So again, it doesn't make any sense. You could bring in numbers I've read, $26 billion in tax money if they legalize marijuana. Now, even if I'm wrong, even if it's $10 billion, even if it's $8 billion, it begins to overcome the deficit. Not that I'm that big a deal on the deficit. Remember, I'm pragmatic. I'm also a professor, and I know that economically speaking, deficits are not bad. The Tea Party thinks it's bad because what the Tea Party does is, well, outside of not thinking, they look at it as we do as an individual finance thing. Governments aren't individuals. And that's where the Supreme Court has made their huge mistakes as it comes to looking at corporations as individuals, because corporations are not individuals, never be individuals, they're corporations. But the Supreme Court in the late 90s and early part of this century, in fact, made, that's why we have campaign finance laws and these PACs can go on poor money. That's why you'll never see another poor man ever be the president of the United States. It'll always be well-educated lawyers. The Harry Trumans, who was a haberdasher who became the president, it's now about powerful lawyers. It's about interests that are going to pump money into whatever person that they believe in. You'll see, I have a cousin who I can almost guarantee will put $100 million into Hillary Clinton's pocket if she decides to run in 2016. He's got the money. He has no problem writing the check, any more than I'd have a problem writing a check for $100. So, and that's what it's become now. The rich are going to decide what goes on. Well, I think what we have to do is to become more realistic of what's going on, and that goes around that whole marijuana issue. Is why not just legalize it? Then we don't have to enforce the laws. We can start to clean up our prisons because, again, there are not going to be so many people in there for minor drug offenses, and we can go after the really evil criminals. The people who go out and take guns and massacre people and stuff like that, and the people who rip people off and the people who rob people. Those are crimes against the person. Remember, marijuana lies, there's no victim. Those are victimless crimes. Those are possession crimes. Those are, the government says this is what we want you to do. It's George Orwell. It's 1984. And look what you can do with the deficit in agriculture. Allow farmers to grow 10% of their arable cropland and grow marijuana. You could cut out all your agricultural subsidies because they would be making so much money with 10 acres out of 100 growing high-grade marijuana, and then selling it, and then the companies that package it would be taxed, and everybody would be paying taxes on it, and everybody would be making money on it, and you wouldn't have to worry about kids standing on the streets shooting each other, trying to sell a nickel bag to some guy from the suburbs, whatever. Come on. I mean, the government doesn't think to the big picture. They think around this small special interest picture. And frankly, one of the things that really pisses me off, and you will see more and more rants about it, are things like that. So again, I want you to stop in SevsDeadSerious.com, and please, when you drop in, tell me what you want to talk about. Tell me what you're interested in. I will listen. I'm a professor. I got plenty of books. Take a look around me. This is all books over here. I got all books over there. I got a computer sitting in front of me. I got all of this research available. Lord knows, give me a topic, I'm going to go after it. Guaranteed. Because SevsDeadSerious.com, come on down.